A Ghost in the Opera. Fanfiction written by chatdunoir. Chapter 4. Wandering Child. Emma's first week at the Opera Garnier could be described in one word: busy. Rehearsal from early morning to early afternoon, and then homework until evening. Emma never had so many things to do before, but she absolutely loved it. She loved waking up to a new day of singing, a new day with the choir. Emma had made friends here, however impossible that sounded. She hadn't been good at making friends and fitting in at her old school, but it was different here. She and Lily were hitting it off. Emma had already been invited into Ruby's room 3 times. She, Ruby, and Belle had talked and laughed, and Emma hadn't felt awkward. Ruby and Belle were nice. They made her feel comfortable, made her feel at home. And Madame Carlotta had kept her word and had not moved Emma from the back row. Emma was beyond relieved, and she felt as though her voice was better than ever. Yes, she had promised Madame Carlotta to talk to the coach about her stage fright, but Emma doubted that he would be able to do anything about it. No one ever had. But that was fine. It wasn't a problem. Emma wasn't meant to sing solos or anything. No, she was meant to be a part of a unity and sing in a choir. Others could sing solo, like Lily. Yes, Lily had a lovely voice. Malina had been watching some of the rehearsals, and her eyes had sparkled with pride every time Lily sang. Emma could more than understand why. Lily's voice was deep yet clear, and Emma had no doubt that she would be moved to the front row and even sing solo in no time. She was so talented. Emma wasn't jealous. She was just happy for her new friend, but she was also a bit homesick. During the day, she was too busy to notice, but at night, when she was all alone and was all quiet, Emma thought about her parents back home in Maine. Of course, they had their work to keep them busy, but still. Emma was an only child, a daddy's girl, and the apple of her mother's eye. And she missed her parents. She had called home once during the week she had been here, but she had been advised not to call home too often. That would only make her homesickness worse, Malina said, and she was probably right about that. Emma had decided to be hard on herself. She was only gonna call home once a week, unless something was wrong, of course. That was the only exception. She couldn't let homesickness get the best of her while she was here. She was in Paris, Opera Garnier, her dream. She was supposed to have the time of her life, not mope around and miss her parents. She was gonna make an effort, get out of her shell or whatever it was called. Emma was hoping that singing here at Opera Garnier could somehow help with her social awkwardness. Here she was among her own kind. That should make things a little easier. She had already started to speak up more freely when Madame Carlotta was asking the choir questions. She was off to a good start. The weekend really was the only time where the choir had some time off. Of course, they still had to be on top with their homework, but apart from that, they were free to do whatever they wanted. And Emma had made plans for this Saturday night. She was gonna call her parents, have some tea with honey to soothe her throat. Not that there was anything wrong with her throat, she just wanted to make sure to keep any hoarseness out of her voice. Once she had had her tea, she would climb to bed with a book. Emma was quite the bookworm, but she hadn't had any time to read since she had arrived in Paris. She was looking forward to spending her night with a cup of tea and a good book. She was currently reading The Moving Finger by Agatha Christie. Emma had always loved a good mystery novel, which was sort of ironic when thinking about how shy and careful she was in real life. But books were different. Books were safe. Emma's second passion. There was singing, and then there was books. Both things so important to Emma. Ruby and Belle had tried to coax Emma to come out with them tonight, and so had Lily. She had used 2 arguments such as, "This is Paris, for Christ's sakes, you have to see the city." But Emma hadn't been convinced. Going out meant crowds and most likely loud music in some bar. Emma wasn't old enough to drink, but she was allowed in bars. And bars meant loud music and chit-chatting, making it impossible to hear yourself think. Everything Emma hated. So she had said no, and she hadn't even come up with an excuse. No, she had been completely truthful when telling Lily that she felt too tired to go out. Everything was too new. Emma's mind was packed with new impressions, and she needed this night to unwind and relax. She was gonna be in Paris for a long time. There would be plenty of opportunity to see Paris. Lily had accepted that, and Emma had wished her a fun night out. And reminded her of the curfew. Lily had laughed and sweetly told Emma that she reminded her of her mother, and Emma had laughed with her because Melina was pretty cool, and she had absolutely nothing against being compared to her. Melina was so put together all the time. Emma hoped she could learn a thing or two from the older blonde. Who knows? Maybe she could even learn to be as put together as she was. Emma chuckled. She doubted that was something she could ever learn. Being that put together was probably something you were born with. It couldn't be achieved that easily. Emma had always appreciated Saturdays, and especially grey ones like this one. Saturdays were meant for relaxing and reading in bed. Emma was looking forward to the cozy night she had carved out for herself. She was halfway through her book, and she couldn't wait to read the rest in the safe confines of her bed later tonight, when the wind was howling and the sky was dark. The weather really set the mood for murder mystery she was reading about. "Okay, of course. No, Dad, I'm staying in tonight," Emma laughed, and wedged the cell phone between her ear and shoulder as she walked about in her room. Her dad laughed. "Another night in with a book?" "You know me too well," Emma chuckled. "How's Mom?" "She's fine. She's at parent-teacher conference tonight, so it's just me." "Oh," Emma's mouth twisted a bit. "Do you feel very lonely?" No, of course not," her father said quickly. "I didn't mean it like that. Don't worry, princess. I'm doing perfectly well. And so's your mom. Now, tell me, how is parents? Are you making friends?" Emma laughed. Her dear old dad, always asking the same questions. "Paris is great, Dad. And I'm still hanging out with Lily. She's really nice. And so's Belle and Ruby." "I'm very happy to hear that," her dad said. "So, you feel at home?" "I do. But my room smells," Emma said spontaneously. That was true. Her room did have this strange, spicy scent. Emma wasn't sure why and how, but on the 3rd morning after her arrival at the Opera Garnier, she had suddenly woken up to a strong, spicy smell. Almost a bit oriental. Emma hadn't been able to figure out where it came from. She never wore spicy perfume. She preferred more light and flowery scents. But the smell wasn't an unpleasant one per se. It was actually quite pleasant, really, so she wasn't enormously occupied with thinking about it. She figured that maybe Ruby or Belle were spicy perfume. Her dad laughed in the other end. "Well, if that's your biggest concern, I'm not worried about you, sweetheart. Have you talked to that coach about your stage fright yet?" Emma quelled a little sigh. "No, Dad, not yet. That's next week." "Oh, okay. And you're okay with it?" Emma shrugged, even though her father hardly was capable of seeing it. "Yes, I guess so. But I don't think it's gonna work." "Emma," her dad gently chided. "You can't think like that. Maybe this coach has some new methods you can use." Emma forced herself to be optimistic. "Yes, Maybe that's my girl. Emma laughed. I miss you and Mom. We miss you too, Princess. And we can't wait to come and visit you in Paris. I think your mom wants to go shopping when she sees you. Thanks for the heads up, Emma chuckled. Lord knows she hated shopping and needed a lot of time to mentally prepare herself for it. And a shopping trip with her mom was always interesting. She loved to shop for hours. Emma couldn't count the times she had lost her mind when shopping with her mom. David laughed again. You better not cancel on her this time. I'd never dream of it, Emma assured, even though she was prone to canceling shopping trips and had done it a few times already. Emma, David warned with another chuckle. I won't, Emma promised. I mean it. Good. And how's rehearsal going? Is it still hard? The hardest I've ever worked in my life, but I love it, Emma said passionately. Do I sound hoarse? No, not at all. But you're taking care of yourself, right? You're not straining your voice, aren't you? No, of course not. I'm actually just about to have a cup of tea, and then to bed. Her dad was quiet for a moment and then asked, You didn't want to go out with your friends? No, but it's fine, Dad, Emma said quickly, rushing to assure her father. I chose to stay home. Princess, you have to remember, to go with them every once in a while. Emma finished the sentence. Yeah, I know. I just don't want you to get lonely, sweetheart. I know, Emma said, voice softer now. And I won't. I'll be fine, Dad. I am fine. I know you are. I'm just being silly because you're so far away, Emma chuckled softly. I'm not that far away. Just a phone call. And you and Mom will come and visit me soon. I can't wait to show you around here. And we can't wait to hear you sing, sweetheart. Emma muttered something that was only partially coherent. There was that twinge of anxiety again. She almost scoffed as she reminded herself that it was only her parents. Of course she could sing for her parents. She had done so 1,000,000 times already. Emma? Emma, are you there? Yes, of course I'm here, Emma said quickly. But it's getting late, so I think I better get that cup of tea before the cantina closes. All right, sweetheart. I'll talk to you next week. Of course. Say hi to Mom? I will. Sleep well. Good night, Dad. Good night, sweetheart. Emma put the phone down and smiled. Her parents were doing just fine back home. Then she ventured out to find that cup of tea. Well, no. First, she shrugged a wide robe over her pajamas. And then she ventured out to find that cup of tea. She left the dormitory and headed down the stairs. There were so many stairs, and Emma had gotten lost a number of times already. There had been one time when she had been late to practice because of it, and she had been terribly embarrassed because of it, but she had been with Lily, so it hadn't been so bad. And Madame Carlotta was nice. Not the type who got angry at her students. Emma went down another staircase and down the hallway. She would reach another staircase in a moment. There were exactly 6 flights of stairs she had to pass before getting to the cantina. She had carefully memorized that a few days ago, and she tried her best not to forget it. She had to learn to find her way around here. Lily couldn't be here all the time. Finding way on her own was essential. Emma snickered quickly to herself, battled another staircase. Lily had joked about how she needed a map to find her way around here, and she hadn't been wrong, really. This was a big place, a very big place. Getting lost was easy. When Emma turned left, she nearly ran into Malina and had to take a step back. Oh! Evening, Emma, Malina said, amused. Where are you off to in such a hurry? The cantina. I wanted to get some tea before bedtime. Sensible. Is Lily with you? Lily? No, She went out. Did she now? Melina narrowed her eyes and sighed. That girl. I'm sorry, Emma said sheepishly. I thought she had permission to go out. Ah, it's not your fault, dear, Melina said with a slight chuckle. Yes, I would have preferred if she stayed in tonight, but a simple order has never stopped my Lily. Emma chuckled. She couldn't help it. Melina sounded almost proud as she said it. I might have to talk about it later to her, though, Melina continued with a headshake and smiled at Emma. If she was a little bit more like you, things would be easier. My parents keep nagging me because they want me to go out more, Emma told her and grinned a little. Melina clicked her tongue. Well, then perhaps you and Lily can influence each other a little bit. Maybe, Emma grinned. Anyway, you better go and get that tea before the cantina closes, Melina said and glanced at her watch. Have a good night, Emma. Good night, Melina. Emma smiled and stepped aside so the older blonde could pass her. Emma continued her quest to find the cup of tea. Down the stairs, through a narrow hallway, and then climbing more stairs. Man, this was quite the mission. Oh well, at least she was getting exercise. That was something. But she was still starting to get second thoughts about this quest. It was a chilly night, and Emma was only wearing her nightgown under her bathrobe. She was beginning to regret her plan about getting a cup of tea. She should have stayed in her room, where it was warm and cozy. She wasn't in any mood to run around in the hallways. She would much rather be curled up in her bed with her book. She stopped abruptly when she reached the door. Emma frowned. That door wasn't a part of the route to the cantina. She knew that. It had the wrong color. After the 6 flights of stairs, she was supposed to reach a blue door, not a red one. She must have gone down one staircase too many, or maybe she had turned left instead of right in the hallway. Emma sighed. She was lost in any case. Running into Melina must have distracted her. She pursed her lips and did something she very rarely did. Cursed softly under her breath. Damn it. If only she could remember whether she had made the wrong turn in the hallway or taken one staircase too many. Should she turn around and walk back? Or should she try her luck with this door? She ended up deciding on the second option. She resolutely opened the door and went inside. Another staircase. Oh, maybe she hadn't made the wrong turn after all. Maybe she was on the right path. She briskly walked down the stairs. She had to be almost there, right? She chose to believe so. The cantina was probably close by, and then she could finally get that cup of tea and go to bed with her book like she had planned. She was looking forward to this. Emma more or less stumbled through the next hallway, and after a second she reached the next door. She frowned again. Nope, this couldn't be right. Damn it, she said to no one in particular. Maybe Lily was right. Maybe she did need a map. It was ridiculous. She had lived here for a week, and she still couldn't make out the way to the cantina on her own. What was she, stupid or something? She seriously had to get better at finding her way around this place. It was her home now. Emma looked back and sighed. Did she really want to go all the way back in an attempt to retrace her steps? Maybe there was a shortcut right behind this door, a quicker way to get to that damn cantina. It was definitely worth a shot, right? She was getting stubborn now. She hadn't come all this way just to turn around, and she still hadn't had her tea. One could debate how important that cup of tea really was, but she was getting annoyed and steely determined to have that cup of tea no matter what. She refused to leave empty-handed. She didn't want to feel like an even bigger fool than she already did. Emma ripped the door open and more or less stumbled inside. And the moment she did, she knew that, nope, this was most definitely not a shortcut to the cantina, because this was the stage, the big stage, the one she had been seeing during the tour here, the one she was supposed to sing at along with the rest of the choir. Emma looked around in the impressive room. It turned out that the door she had busted through was in fact the stage door. She was standing right on the stage and had to tilt her head back and slightly in order to see everything. God, this room was fantastic. Emma took a few steps and enjoyed the way her footsteps echoed. She could hear herself in here. She hummed to herself as she looked around. Everything was red and golden in here. Red velvet seats and golden ornaments. Being in here almost took Emma's breath away. Her heart pounded in her chest. Imagine to sing in here. From her safe place in the back row, obviously, but still. She looked at the many empty velvet seats. This room full of people. Her parents being here to hear her sing. She sighed longingly. This was even better than a cup of tea. She began to walk around on the stage, and a chill ran down her spine at the almost ghostly way her footsteps echoed in the big, empty room. Was she even supposed to be here? She wasn't so sure about that, but she was supposed to dream for a moment, wasn't she? Emma closed her eyes and began to hum softly to herself once more. Her voice echoed too, soared up towards the ceiling like a lone soap bubble. Her voice sounded good in here, even more fragile than usual. Emma had forgotten entirely about the cup of tea now. Singing on this empty stage was so much more interesting. She sang. Now, there was a song she knew like the back of her hand. She couldn't count how many times she had rehearsed that one at home in front of the mirror. She stopped singing and sighed a bit again as she pushed a lock of hair behind her ear, inhaling deeply as though she was trying to breathe in the atmosphere of this amazing room. Did velvet have a smell? If it did, Emma was sure she could smell just that right now. And she could almost hear the applause from audiences coming and going throughout the years. The memories of old performances echoed in this room. She probably wasn't supposed to be here. No one had told her so directly, but she had that famous gut feeling, that prickling sensation that she was breaking unwritten rules. She should be on her way back home to her dormitory. She could have tea tomorrow. Emma opened her eyes, and after having inhaled deeply one more time, she slowly turned around. Her footsteps echoed all the way back to the stage door. She put a hand on the doorknob, hesitated for a moment. She didn't really want to leave. For some weird reason, it felt like the room belonged to her, at least right now. She was the one who had found it at this late hour, and she wanted nothing more than to stay and soak up the atmosphere a little longer. But she also didn't want to get in trouble or anything. She had to leave. She pressed the doorknob down and was just about to push the door open when she heard something that made her ears perk up. First, she couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was, but she still turned her head and looked around the stage. What was that? She was sure she heard something. She just couldn't say what exactly. It had sounded like rustling. Yeah, rustling. That's the word she was looking for. There had been this slightly rustling sound coming from somewhere between the velvet seats. But where exactly? Emma went a few steps away from the door and took a good look around. She had grown curious. What in the world was that rustling sound? For a second she imagined a lost bird being stuck in there and chuckled slightly to herself. The sound of her laughter echoed beyond the walls. But then she heard something else. A new sound. Footsteps? No, that couldn't be. Emma tilted her head and strained her ears. Yes, there was footsteps, all right. Soft footsteps on the velvet floor. Not echoey like her own, but soft and subtle. Barely audible and yet very much there. Hello? Emma called into the empty room. Hello? Is someone there? No one answered. Instead, she heard more footsteps. If she didn't know any better, she would say that someone was walking around between the seats. No, walking wasn't the right word to use. More like strolling. Yes, strolling around in an unhurried pace and stopping at box 5. Emma frowned as she walked to the middle of the stage. What the hell was the meaning of this? Was someone teasing her? If so, it wasn't funny. Hello? She called again. Who's there? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No more rustling. No more footsteps. Emma could only hear her own breath, which seemed to have sped up. She shivered slightly and felt how the skin in the back of her neck seemed to retract and prickle. Suddenly, she had the distinct feeling that she wasn't alone anymore. But that was impossible. She couldn't see anyone. Hello? She called again, though with less certainty this time around. Hello? Is someone there? This isn't funny. Nothing. Silence. Emma could feel the goosebumps erupt on her skin. Someone was clearly playing a game with her, and she knew one thing for sure. She didn't want to be a part of it. She turned around and walked back towards the stage door. Hello? Emma yelped and nearly jumped as she rolled around on the spot. A man was standing in box 7 and looking at her, and Emma felt a rush of relief when she recognized Maurice, the so-called handyman, who often helped out with odd jobs here and there. Miss Swan, he said, and sounded just as surprised as she felt. What are you doing here so late? You should be in your dormitory. I was just looking for the cantina, Emma said half-heartedly. Have you been there all the time? More or less, Maurice said. Got in through the door up here. He knocked twice on said door. There's a chair that needs fixing. Oh, Emma said. She felt tempted to ask if he'd been in box 5, but she didn't. She couldn't explain why. Maybe she was afraid of sounding ridiculous. Maybe she was ridiculous. Maurice had been here all the time. He was the only one who had walked around between the chairs. Maybe it's time you went back to your dormitory? Maurice suggested, and Emma had never agreed more. It was high time she went back to her dormitory. But first she cast one last look at box 5. Nothing. And she couldn't hear any footsteps any longer either. Just the sound of Maurice whistling while he fixed the chair. Emma bid him good night and left the stage room as fast as she could, without running. After all, there was nothing to be afraid of. Too long forgotten, she went straight back to bed and curled up under the covers. There had been someone there with her in the stage room. She was sure of that. And she tried to convince herself that it had been A, Maurice, too busy with fixing the chair to notice her until she left, or B, someone playing a silly little joke on her. A little harmless joke. But, harmless or not, Emma preferred to think that it had been option A. Maybe Maurice had been wearing headphones and had only heard her when she started calling out. After all, he hadn't been that easy to spot. The way he had been crouched down next to the chair, she surely couldn't have seen him from the stage. But that rustling sound, what was that? Emma knew of no tool that made a rustling sound like the one she had heard. It took a while before she fell asleep that night. To be continued. Chapter endnotes. She's there, the phantom of the opera. Beware, the phantom of the opera. Thanks for listening. Bye.